Hello everyone, my name is Rust of Toasty, and welcome back to some more Satisfactory. Today, we're not going to be doing anything special. This is just going to be a 1,000 hour Satisfactory tour. We're going to do a tour of my world that I've spent 1,000 whole entire hours in. I don't know how I managed this, but I've spent 1,000 hours in this world. That's a long time. That's a lot of hours, actually. We're just going to be going through some of the factories that I built over time, like this whole big one here that looks ridiculous now and used to just be a large box. This is the first factory I ever built in this world, making screws and cable and rods, basically all of the early game resources that you could possibly need. This is, of course, earlier in the playthrough when I wasn't quite efficient in the way that I built my factories. It does have multiple floors, as you could probably have told. So we've got a few floors in here. On this bottom one, we've got smelters and a bunch of constructors way over here doing God knows what. Why? I hate this. So basically, we have visited this place a couple of times and added some things on top. I think most of it is done now, and I also think I can put this wall back. I don't know why I didn't before. So basically, this whole factory just has a bunch of holes all over it, and a bunch of cables and wires, and just everything everywhere, honestly, is what I would call this. What we built in the first episode when we loaded up the game for the first time, technically. Of course, there are some things that we added on top. We added the trucks in when we got those for the modular frames and the rotors, but we're not there yet. We also added in these power switches. In the second episode, we built this factory first, a reinforced iron plates factory. Just because there was a whole bunch of iron already nearby here, I didn't bother going to look anywhere else. We've got all these lines filled with screws and plates, and then they each go into these assemblers here, making the reinforced iron plates. And we have already filled up this incredibly massive buffer. I don't know why I have a buffer this big exactly. And then the next one that we built in that same episode was the rotor factory, which is over here. We of course didn't have hypertube travel or a whole lot of vehicles, so I would either use the tractors to get over here or I would just walk. Of course, that was a little bit later. We didn't have the tractors when I built this. This is one of the first more walkable factories that I built, based around what it would look like to walk through it. So we've got the smelters that lead into these constructors, and then some more constructors over here, of course, even on both sides. And then you've got these little towers in the middle as well, going up to the next floor, where you've got this weird splitter setup that makes very little sense, and then more constructors, even, of course, with the platform, and then more constructors over here, and you can see some over there, a little bit of open space. And then, of course, you have the top floor and the gorgeous night sky, despite the fact that the sun is out. Galaxy, which I will never understand. Massage 2B is very strange. So you have the rods and the screws all coming up and going to their correct assemblers. And this one is the most ridiculous. This floor is very strange until you get down here where it's fairly even, and then you have 3 entire containers before you get to the last one, and then before you go into the sink. I don't remember if I did this one next. I actually have to look at my list. It's not, actually. It was the 4th video I made, that when I was building this giant modular frame, one of, if not the coolest factories I've ever built, just because it's got all these belts going everywhere and all this open space and how perfect and even it is. Anyway, we've got this whole corner and then a whole bunch of empty space, which is a little strange, but it's fine. The main attraction is these parts and the fact that it looks like a modular frame. And then up here you've got the main assemblers actually making the modular frames, and also some materials just kind of floating around, which I can pick up now because I have the inventory space. Versus when I built this, I think I was around 5, maybe 6 lines I don't know, maybe 4. But yeah, we've got a big backlog of this too that then goes to another backlog, and then another backlog, and then another backlog. So it's great. Um, Either way, I really like this factory because it's this it's just this massive, like, actual, it looks like the modular frame, the same model as the item. If I go put one down, I think I have some. Yeah, if I go drop that, if you look at this, if you're looking at this, and then you look up at that, that's almost the same. Like, that's really good, except the fact that that one has stuff in it and this one doesn't. So, obviously. But I think it was really cool. And then, technically before that, actually, we built our first coal mine, or coal processing plant. So instead of using just the biomass burners, now we could use the coal power, which is a lot more efficient than biomass burners. So the first coal plant that we ever built is right over here, I believe. This one, right here. This is the first coal plant we ever built. I mean, I think all of them look this way, where they're just 8 of them in a line, and then, like, I think I actually used the same model for every single one, so they all look pretty much exactly the same. But yes, we built a lot of coal factories, and that got us a lot of power. And then after that, we built the modular frame, the mega modular frame, as I like to call it. It is labeled the MMF on my map. And then after the modular frame, we did a bunch of MAM research. That's what you'll find on the YouTube playlist, so not something we hugely have to go over here. And then after that, we built the steel factory. I actually had to build that one because I couldn't get very far in my MAM research because I didn't have a bunch of steel stuff that I needed. Here we are. I did also recently change this. At first, it was bringing all these materials via truck or tractor, but then I did end up switching it to trains since I can make an intersection like right there. And like I said in the last episode, I'm thinking about changing all of my tracks to look like this instead of being just randomly strewn about all over the world. So yeah, I built this whole giant factory that isn't running right now, actually. I turned it off so that the aluminum factory can run until we get a better power infrastructure up and running. I'm just gonna leave it this way. I don't particularly like these curves. I'm gonna have to do larger curves with the rest of it. But again, that's a later thing. That's not right now, so we're not gonna worry about it. After the hypertubes, we started working on fuel. And I can't actually show you what our first fuel setup looked like because it's not here anymore. I got rid of it because it was inefficient, but I did switch it out for a larger one that works a little bit better. Oh, I can't get back now because I turned off the factory. Oh, whoops. And this is why I wanted my hypertubes on a separate setup. But that's too much effort, so I'm not going to do it. I am, however, going to hopefully grab a train. Yes, I am going to grab a train. And I'm going to go back to the main base. Now, fuel actually took up like 3.5 total episodes. There was the first one where we built that's the Armory. Where am I going? First fuel setup, so that we could just get enough plastic and rubber to start moving on to the rest of it. The second episode was where we started building the factory at large. We used to have a factory down here. We have this one we built secondary, where it's actually making basically all of the oil products going into different boxes or going into the sink over here. So we have this one, which is making the computers with the circuit boards and the plastic, and then I think that's cable and screws right there, yeah. And then these two that are making the circuit boards for the computer, and this one that's making the circuit boards for just to have them, because you need them in some builds. Then back here, we have these ones making fuel, and these ones making turbo fuel. These ones make rubber, I think. Unless they were... Yeah, these ones make rubber with more heavy oil residue than the plastic does. Of course, for the last episode of building this, we also overhauled the power grid, which is when we started using these specialized power poles that have like 6 or 19 or 18 or however many it was different power lines. So we've got these bigger ones that have 18, and then these smaller ones that have 6, and then this big giant one that has 40, and it's meant to go underground because that's where my main base is. Apparently they're making a change in update 8 in a video. They talked about this in a video they released recently that makes my entire power grid like completely worthless with those new priority switches they have that you can access all from one, which is incredibly powerful, and I love that they're adding that into the game. But I wish I had known about that or something, so I wouldn't have built this massive infrastructure, and now it's like entirely useless. And I can't even get these anymore because when my computer itself, I lost all the blueprints. So I had to remake that small one, and then I didn't want to remake this one, so I made a different one. There you go. It looks like that. So it looks okay. Like I think it actually looks a little bit better than the old one, and it's got more power lines on it too, so it's actually even better. But also it's kind of annoying that now I have to do that. I have to either replace my entire power grid with something else, or just, I don't know, suffer. It still considers this a blueprint, actually, so I might be able to dismantle this as one thing. Like, it still recognizes this was built as a blueprint, so it might actually be, because I definitely didn't want to dismantle these individually, but with the new blueprint system they have, I might be able to dismantle that once update 8 comes out and actually build a smaller power grid. Yeah, that's definitely something I want to do. Anyway, down here, we have this whole long line of 40 cables every single time, going each and every one, and then 40 cables here, and then 40 cables on the inside, so basically a ridiculous number of cables that took me forever to figure out, and I hated it the whole time, but I did it, and now it's useless. Thanks, game. And then after that, we started on our armory, or we made our armory. We finished it, actually, after we did the power and the fuel stuff. Since we had the oil, I went and automated some of the weapon stuff that I needed, like the bullets and the nobelisks, of which I have 41. 40. Can't even see where that blew up. This is one of the strangest things, too, one of the strangest interchanges, because we've got one part of the interchange over here, and then another part over here, and I actually had to have 2 separate, like, path blocks, which was a little annoying, but it's fine. On the inside here, this is the first time we ever used trucks, and also, so far, the only time we ever used trucks, and I'm honestly not even certain we're ever going to use them again. Of course, this is all turned off now so that the aluminum factory can run easily and safely. We've got some of it making packaged fuel to go into the truck station right here, and then these ones that are making the important stuff like the black powder. I think this is the smokeless powder, and then a portion of the ammo goes to a bin, and then I don't know if it was a larger or smaller portion, goes into a bin up here, making the homing rifle ammo, which is something we added later on. Yeah, a few episodes later we added that in. Of course, after we built this one, the next thing we did before we could get to trains is we built the heavy modular frames factory, which I will take you to shortly. So here this one's actually a really fun one. I liked. This is when I started using even more windows. I've got this little corridor here with a bunch of stuff. I guess I turned this one off too. I think this one's connected to steel. Yeah, this one doesn't have its own individual thing. This one's connected to steel. I started the build with kind of a challenge because I had to keep it in a certain footprint. That's what it's called, a footprint. I built this underneath section first with these bits, the foundations down here, and I built up these walls and built the rest of the factory on top of this. So this is one of the first kind of challenging ones that I had. I had to build it all on top of this. The only thing is this one was a little bit wider just because I actually couldn't fit it into the same footprint. I guess it was the logistics. I needed it a little bit wider for that. Anyway, this goes into the item corridor. And then we've got a room in here that does the constructors. This one is one of the more walkable factories, but not really by a whole lot. There's just a few walkways on the inside and the outside here. Going around, stuff like that. Pretty simple. So basically, that's the cubes. And then we had our massive stream for the train loop that we built, which went through there. And obviously I've been touring that most of this time. Then after that, we did some stuff with whatever the next tier was. I think it was... What tier are we on now? Whatever the tier is before that. Tier 3 for the space elevator, something like that. Then we did a base transformation of my actual main base underground. Again, I can't show you what it looked like before. Anyway, real quick, I'm just going to go take you on a short tour of the main base. Starting with the subway, because that's where we're going to end up. Here we are. I think I'm going to overshoot a little bit. And I am. So in here, we have this main subway platform right here. And we actually have these little walking floors. Okay, yeah, so we've got these walking floors because it was a little too slow for me. Because on some occasions, I had to get from here all the way to the end, and I didn't like it. So we've got these little walking floors, which is good for our tour. So we each of these has 3 freight platforms, and then the 1 actual train station, as you can tell by the kind of like wall there. And then our trains come in, they stop at their designated station, and then they head on out. Each of these train stations can of course be accessed from this side, from this little walk area. And then you just kind of jump off. Yeah. And then down here we have another walk floor, which still doesn't get you as fast as the trains, but gets you pretty fast. And you can launch yourself into the hypertube that takes you from the train station up to the main hub. Right in here, we have 1 hypertube to take you back to the subway station, and 1 hypertube to take you up to the surface. Of course, there's a lot of lights in here because I like it to be well lit, and there's a roof in the way. We've got our MAM, we have our equipment workshop, and on the other side, we've got 18 storage boxes, and then we have the Fix-It shop right there. And then right here is where I store all my Fix-It coupons, which I don't have that many of. Of course, I've bought most things I'm going to use especially, except I haven't got the Mark III outlets yet. In here, of course, we have our craft bench, hub terminal. As you exit the main hub, you have the storage system. So right in here, we've got a glass ceiling. So we have all of our different storage items here, some with some questionable names. I started on this side, so that's why these few are normal. And then as I went down, I got more and more annoyed with having to go in, change the name, like change the color, change the image, change this, and then I ended up changing it all back too later. So that was really annoying. Anyway, now we've got a uniform system, and we've got all of our different boxes that have the things in them. And then you also have this big old power thing right here. Got all our switches in here for different machines. And then here we have the central square. You know what? I'm gonna call it a central square because I put a lot of effort into making this look like a circle, but it's the central square, and it's hilarious. Love that design. Don't know where I came up with that. Pretty cool. Anyway, and of course we have the space elevator way over here and a track that I'm going to get rid of because it's useless. Of course, we don't have any of these parts yet because I haven't done it. The last thing is the aluminum, which we did last episode, which I am very proud of, both the inside and how it looks on the outside. There's more of our coal. And then right over here is our big old box for aluminum. Currently, none of this is going anywhere. It's contained entirely within this factory. So this has like a bunch. It makes a bunch, and I mean a bunch with like a capital bunch of stuff, which is why I called it my largest factory yet. We have, I think it was like 700. We don't have 700 right now because it's not full potential yet, but we're going to have 700 aluminum scrap. We're going to have 480 alclad aluminum sheets, 480 aluminum ingots, and then 360 aluminum casings per minute. which most factories aren't going to need. They might need upwards of like 70, 90 maybe, unless it's just a massive factory. And again, I do very much like the visuals of this one, how it looks. There's like a lot more work put into the way this one looks than most of the other ones. That should be everything in terms of the tour. I do hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe. Helps me out a lot. It's entirely free. There's no actual bad side, honestly. And if you get bored of me, then sure, whatever. It's your choice. You can unsubscribe later. Let me know anything you want to see in this world in the comments below. I'll do my best to read them all, answer any that I can, and I will see you next time for probably some advanced aluminum. And then this stuff, and then this stuff, and then this stuff. So, yeah, that's gonna be fun. I'll see you next time for a little bit of this. I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day. I hope you've had a wonderful day to begin with, and I will see you later. So,